Oh, okay.
We got a monitor over here, so it works.
Great.
Okay, well, I'm here with Kirk Humphreys, who, as everybody knows, is the former mayor of Oklahoma City. He was the mayor back when Maps for Kids passed in 2001. And Kirk, I'd like you to take me back to 2001. The city obviously had some success with Maps, but it wasn't complete yet. All those benefits had not come out. So how risky was it to try to pass a follow-up to Maps?
Well, I think the big change happened really several years before that, in '98 when we opened the ballpark. It really changed the way people felt about Maps and about Oklahoma City. And in late fall of '98, we approved the Finish Maps Right tax that really built the Ford Center. And we're glad we did that. So I thought it wasn't terribly risky to build on the success of Maps and address our most important issue, and that's public schools.
So you feel like that brand of Maps gave you guys a sort of a nice starting place, but at the same time, I mean, this was not a canal or a ballpark. I mean, building schools is something that not everyone necessarily can enjoy. So how hard a sell was this for voters?
You know, it's a hard sale in getting the city voter to move over and take city sales tax and move it over to addressing education needs. But it's an easy sell in that it's for kids. And so we took the strength of the Maps brand, and then it's Maps for Kids. Jeff Cloud, who's now on the Corporation Commission, came into my office one day. He said, "What are you going to call this?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, how about Maps?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, what Maps stand for?" And I said, "Metropolitan Area Projects." He goes, "Well, how about Metropolitan Area Public Schools? Call it Maps for Kids." And it worked.
And obviously that Maps brand has grown into something else. There's already people talking about potential Maps 3, but right. I mean, do you feel like the two of these together, I mean, you've built a brand now that you can use?
Well, I think the city has. With Maps, they have credibility. They've proven that they can deliver what they promise, and I think it's a very valuable brand. I think it has great credibility in the city. As the mayor and the city leaders look at what is after Maps for Kids and what is Maps 3, it's going to be a challenge, a great challenge to determine what's in there, what is of that pressing nature that we need to be willing to tax ourselves for several years in order to pay for it.
This was sort of I mean, people have been using city sales tax to pay for big capital projects like arenas and things like that, but the idea of rebuilding schools with city sales taxes was a new one.
Yeah.
And in particular, Oklahoma City had trouble as a district getting bond issues passed. Were you happy you could sort of lend that Maps brand over to try to help Oklahoma City schools get something done they had not been able to do by themselves?
You know, it's interesting, Brian. Now I'm wearing the school board chairman hat today. Back then I was in the office of mayor, and we did lend them our credibility. And not only lend them our credibility, we gave the school district about $500 million of our tax base. That's not something that mayors and city managers like to do. We did it to help the schools, but we did it first and foremost to help our city. You really can't build a successful city, a healthy city, without great schools. And our urban school district has struggled for a long time. We've made progress in the last few years. We're still not where we need to be. But we did it out of really, I think, an enlightened self-interest as a city.
That said, I mean, it wasn't just the people within the Oklahoma City School District who voted on this. Oklahoma City, there are many districts that were involved in this, Putnam City being the obviously largest second one.
There are 24 districts.
Right, and many of the voters who voted on this lived outside of the Oklahoma City School District, and I know it wasn't necessarily easy to tell them, hey, give your tax dollars to Oklahoma City schools. So what did you guys in particular do to try to tailor your message for those folks?
Well, there was something in it for everybody. There were 23 suburban districts, but they all got a pro rata share. The greater percentage of the dollars went to the urban district, but 30% of the sales tax dollars were scattered around, totaling $150 million to the suburban districts on a pro rata basis. So a district like Putnam City got around $50 million in Maps for Kids. It's very significant.
Did you think it was fairly easy to sell that message to those suburban voters?
It wasn't real easy to sell it. At first, the school districts, the superintendents and the school boards were resistant because they thought, we don't like this deal. But we determined to do it in a way that benefited them, that strengthened their tax base, and that really was fair. Everybody had to get something. And we worked with the suburban districts for about a year and a half to get their agreement. Ultimately, all 24 school boards endorsed the plan. And then we had to go and make our case to the suburban voters. And you know, we look at it and say it passed overwhelmingly. Well, the sales tax and the bond issue both got about 61%. That's pretty good on a sales tax that's a very narrow victory for a bond issue.
Right. The bond issue, you had to get 60% on that. And I was going to ask you how nervous you were the night of the vote when those numbers started coming in and you knew it was going to be relatively close.
I was probably not as nervous as I should have been. That's the truth. I thought we'd get 63, 64%, and we got 61. So it was a lot tighter than I thought it would be, quite frankly.
At the same time, I mean, asking people to tax themselves, I mean, getting 60+%, I mean, that's a pretty big majority.
That's strong. I think cities all over the country would admire what we've been able to do here in Oklahoma City. I think the voters here in Oklahoma City really take a lot of gratitude in what's happened with MAPS and is happening with MAPS for Kids. To really turn around an urban school district is quite a challenge, and we've tackled that here in Oklahoma City. When we did it, we said it'd take 10 years before you began to see progress and maybe 20 years to get the job done. We're now 7 years into that. We're seeing progress. As school board chairman, I want to see a whole lot more progress in the next 13 years.
People tend to attach your name to MAPS for Kids because you were the mayor when it passed, a lot like they do Ron Newark with MAPS. Do you feel that is your mayoral legacy? And if so, I mean, do you think that's a good legacy to have as a mayor?
Well, I think it is. I think that what we did during my time as mayor, first thing we did, we finished MAPS. Ron had MAPS well underway. The ballpark opened my third day in office, and I say I take total credit for it, jokingly. But so we finished MAPS, we finished it right, we did a good job. I'm very proud of that. And quite frankly, I give credit to Ron Newark every time I speak because he's the guy that had the nerve to do that, and our city has benefited greatly. But no, MAPS for Kids is my legacy. Quite frankly, that's why when Cliff Hudson left the school board, I said, well, I'll do that if no one else will, because we cannot afford to fail on MAPS for Kids. We're investing a lot of money in our public schools. And we're not there yet. We're not where we need to be. We have a good new superintendent. We're making progress. We're not where we want to be. We're not where our voters want us to be. But it's an important undertaking, and if all I do as mayor of Oklahoma City is fix Oklahoma City schools, that'll be a pretty good legacy.
I wonder, a lot of people don't necessarily know you have a long history in school boards. And so you were on the Putnam City School Board when I was in high school before you were mayor. And what is it that's drawn you so much to this? And do you feel like if this is your last legacy, so to speak, as a mayor, that it's something personally that is meaningful to you?
I did. I ran for school board in Putnam City in 1982, and I lost by 37 votes. And then 5 years later ran and won and served 8.5 years on the school board out there. Enjoyed it. A lot of people would say never run for school board. Well, I would encourage people to do that. You know, your schools are no better than you demand that they be. And so you get what you pay for if you're fortunate. And but really at the heart of any community, I don't care whether you're talking Edmond, Norman, or urban Oklahoma City, if you're going to have a healthy community where families want to be, you've got to have good public schools. And so and there's something about America where we offer a public education to every child, regardless of their race, regardless of their economic condition, regardless of whether they've been here 100 years or their family are newly immigrated to America. Something about quality public education that says something about the American dream. And I grew up a product of public schools here in Oklahoma City. All of our children graduated from public schools. And so I think it's a very important investment.
You obviously now being the school board chairman, I mean, you have not just this sort of past to hang on, but you also are looking towards the future here. You said it would take 10 years to maybe start seeing some results in 20 before it's completed. What else needs to be done? I mean, obviously, just because this tax is ending does not mean we're done with the work, but even when the work's all finished, where does Oklahoma City need to go to try and make sure that it's fulfilling that promise of public education?
Well, we have a lot of work to do. MAPS for Kids really was not a solution once for all. It was a catch-up for 30 to 40 years of failed bond elections and really deferred maintenance. We had a bunch of school buildings that were really run down. MAPS for Kids will fix those, but we're dealing with a new issue with a bond issue from 2007 right now that has some flaws in it, and we came forward just a few days ago and exposed that to the public, and we'll fix that. But what we need to do, my goal is for Oklahoma City schools to compete on an even footing with all the suburban districts, to where any family that wants to live in the city can choose the home they live in, the neighborhood they live in, based upon factors other than school districts, because school districts would be considered equal. That would be success to me. We're not there, quite frankly. For decades, people have been moving out of the city because of schools. And so we have a big hill to climb. Now, quite frankly, we've made some progress in the last 7 years. Our test scores in Oklahoma City, we've closed half of the gap in the last 7 years between the suburbs and our urban schools. But, you know, our competition's not Edmond and Norman. Our competition's China and India in today's world. We better compete in that global economy and prepare our children to succeed in that global competitive world. And so we need to get our eyes off of Edmond and Norman, get them on the international world and say we want an outstanding school district that prepares our children. That's our goal.
All right. Well, thank you, Kirk.
Okay, Brian. Thank you. Appreciate it.